So I've seen a lot of solo and instrumental guitar players who play metal who seem to have like a hard time breaching through a certain type of kind of ceiling. As far as acclaim goes, it seems like a pretty hard genre, but you've busted through that with this new album, Theory of Mind. I think it's the best one you've ever done,
Oh,
honestly.
thank you. That's great. Great to hear that.
You're welcome.
Uh,
I wanted to know how you feel about how it all came together finally.
how I feel about the album. To be honest, I'm more anxious to hear what people are gonna say than worry about my own perspective on what I did. So I finished my part of the album, like the recordings, in February this year. Then I kind of gave a break because I had a tour, so I decided to start releasing the first singles in September and do all this release momentum, that takes a month, right? Of course, I feel good about it because it's something that I made it, and then I was by best choices. This is something that I always answer. It's like, who's gonna tell it's good? Because it feels good. I feel good about it. Time will tell. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I'm gonna look back and it's like, oh, it was a great moment. It was a great album. It's like looking at yourself from a perspective, time perspective. And it's always like that. And also the people who's gonna listen to the album is gonna say like, oh, I like that. I like this song. This is your best album. Or I don't really like this album that much. It's too heavy, too whatever, whatever they say. I don't like the sound. Anything can happen. So I always like, what I did, it was the best I could do and that I feel good about it at the moment I was doing. I have respect for those feelings. Funny enough, right after, so in February, March, I started playing a lot of acoustic guitar and I started writing ideas, are very simple, like completely the opposite. Almost like I needed something completely different to go to a different place, a different zone. So I remember in March, April, I was like playing on acoustic guitar just to get out of that theory of mind, metal leads and shred and the whole complexity of those music songs. So my feeling is like every time you do something and you get this anxiety of like, oh, it's about to be out and people's gonna listen what I did at home, right? My intimacy. My intimacy is not gonna be my intimacy anymore. But gives me energy to go back to write new material. It's interesting, I think, to write something different, not to write something that sounds the same. It helps me to go through this anxiety of waiting when people's gonna listen to the album. Because nowadays you have to release on Fridays, so like you just cannot just post. Okay, post this. I was like almost doing that. Just upload the album tomorrow. It's like, hey, everybody's out. Bye, next. But then you don't respect the rules of the game. You have to have a single, second single, then give some time for people, create some expectation. So it's gonna be what, on the 18th, right? So 10
Yeah.
days from now.
The song Blindfolded is beautiful. I like it a lot.
No, thank you.
It's got so much anxiety to it. When I listen to it, I feel like I'm falling down and
Mm.
trying to navigate my way through something that I don't understand. Did you have any kind of inspiration behind that one?
There's always inspiration in every song. Not exactly that, what you just described. That's the beauty of instrumental music. I'm a big fan of instrumental music. So this album's instrumental, classical music, jazz, so many styles of music, soundtracks. They're instrumental and they say a lot of stuff. It's like reading a book. It's all about your imagination when you listen to it. When you have lyrics, the lyrics kind of guides you to a place already. When you don't have lyrics, it's only the waves of the harmonics, the waves of the music. As Frank Zappa said, or somebody said, I don't know, if it's Frank Zappa, the sculpting the air, right? So you're sculpting the air with your music, and then whatever feels, you feel that. That's great. And I always like to hear and read the comments, and I tend to ask people, how do you feel when you listen to that? What do you see?
you're doing the same thing that my mother did to me when I was a little kid. She went
Mm,
out and bought this set of classical records. She would put it on and she would say, Christine, now you sit right here and listen to this and you tell me what you see in your mind. If there's any colors, do you feel like you're falling? She made me do that. So
yeah.
I kind of learned how to put those things together. Point of No Return is a badass introduction. I loved it.
Mm.
Tell me more about how you recorded that one.
Yeah, this was like when you decide to do an album, it's more like a necessity. You might have some songs, you have like, okay, I need to do an album because it's part of my career to do albums. I did my album 2020 pandemic, and then I did the Megadeth, the Sick, the Dying, the Dead, and then I felt like the process of creating was during the tour of the Sick, the Dying, the Dead. So I was writing those songs, right?
Oh,
Yeah. So I was during the tours, in between the tours, like in 2000, 2022, 23. And then the drums were recorded 23, and then guitars end of 23, 24. But the demos, some are prior to that. So it's a mixed feeling of tour stuff. So this song specifically that you're mentioning, it was just like this idea. It's like, it would be cool to play something like the 80s guitar stuff, which is like the specific way to play fast stuff. And then I decided to do something like that, like an intro that would be challenging fast for me. But then the other parts, it turned to another place. Well, this song is kind of a complex song because in a way that was not natural. Some songs, they are natural. You have an idea, the next part comes, and then it's like maybe in a day, like the song Mind Rise. This is like an afternoon song. You have a riff that leads to another one, another thing. Yeah, okay. Record the idea, you have like a rough demo there, done. Like an afternoon kind of thing, which is rare. So this song, I had this idea in the beginning, but I didn't know what to do after. And then I remember doing the tour, thinking about that, and then I had another song, and then I had this epiphany moment that was like, I think I can mix the two good parts, the intro and the other part of the other song that was not so happy, but I like it specific. So I kind of combine two parts. Sometimes this happens. It's not pop music that you have to, get a billion plays in the first week. So then you have to be more careful about the length of the song, modulations in tonalities and lyrics and like the whole thing. Progressive metal, instrumental music is like it's freedom.
so that actually answers my other question. I was going to go back and talk about how you put your album together. How do you decide what's going on your album? Do you just go, hey, I'm going to make an album and start like rolling out with song after song, brand new pieces? Or do you have all this music lying around somewhere, but you
Great
kind of.
question. Yeah, actually, well, I think people probably artists they do different ways. In the case of this album, because as I said, I was like touring with Megadeth, so it's like I want to do songs that are different from the Megadeth stuff that I can do this guitar. So I have one idea here, one idea there. So I start being more active, producing the demos. I had that year the producer with me in the album, so programming the drums, doing everything in the computer, right? Recording the guitars, ideas, some solos, some melodies. Then you go on tour, you listen during days off, whatever. But not really working during the tour because I'm not this kind of guy. For me, it's very difficult to tour and to create. But then coming back home after a week of doing nothing, it was like okay, something pulls me to the computer to continue. Then at some point, it's like a feeling of overflow. Actually, I have a song with that name.
You do.
So it's like a feeling of okay, I have 20 ideas. They kind of sound like songs. Some are more complete than others. So it's like overflowing of ideas that you kind of feel satisfied with the ideas. And then it's like, okay, I think I have an album because there's no record label or manager pushing me. We need to have an album next month. But even working with Megadeth, I didn't have this feeling, Megadeth under Universal. I didn't have this feeling like, where's the album? Or also, it's kind of works in the same way. Time for the album. Let's start creating music, see what happens. Nobody's in a hurry. Okay, so for me it was the same. It's like, oh, now I just sit down and listen. Idea one, idea two, idea three. My phone, oh, this is good. I don't like that. It's almost good, whatever. And then I start rating because what I always tell the students or mentorship people is like, you just create. The judge comes after. The ones that's gonna rate the songs, is a different hat. It's a different person. It's your schizophrenia, right? It's a different personality. Now, like let's see, Kiko, your ideas. This is not good. I don't, but the ones that still satisfies you, you keep going. And then I was showing to Felipe, bass player, Bruno, drummer. I was showing some of the ideas sometimes, like, oh, this is cool. So I have a little bit of an opinion of the people that are around you and that you trust, that know your style, know my career, etc., knows me.
Felipe is such an amazing bassist,
Ah, yeah,
and your
yeah.
drums are insane. And Maria's got the keyboards. You've got this great backup team behind you. What is it like to be able to work with people like that? And they helped you on open source too, right?
Open source, yeah. The thing is, no, they're amazing musicians, and it's like partners that you trust and you like the style. And then when you're writing the songs, you're already imagining um, Bruno would play this, something like that, because I already know them. I create something, using a software called Toontracks, Superior Drummer. So I have like these amazing drum sounds, and then you start creating the songs with that, and then you send to Bruno. So you kind of program the drums already thinking because you know who's going to be the drummer, you know his style. The last thing was the bass. So the song's already done, recorded, and Felipe added the bass. So kind of following what the guitar did. And the keys, Maria, I put her name as a keyboard player because she gives a lot of opinion. She kind of probably put her hands on some stuff. There's no real keyboards like played live. It's all
Mhm.
programmed. I'm the guy doing this. There's some keyboards like played stuff, but also a lot of sound design. Let's call more
I
like
love
some
sound design. Yeah.
some effect, some stuff, some pads, some chords. So I know the songs because I recorded all the guitar. So I start and then I navigate in all those plugins and sounds and stuff. And then I choose some stuff that I think fits to the song. And then Maria comes and it's like, oh, this is cheesy. It's like, oh, this is good. I like this. Why don't you do that? I would stack layers of, some ideas like that. So, and I think is great because helps me because I'm not a keyboard player. Yeah, it's a fun moment to do the keys. Sometimes I compose the keys during the composition. I have a guitar thing, then I imagine I could have a piano melody on top of that. Yeah, in these albums like this. In other albums, open source, Maria played Hammond for real because she knows how to use all the drawbars and stuff. But in this album, we don't have real piano.
The drummer, Bruno,
Bruno, yeah,
he almost sounds like he's following you on that one song, Lost in Seconds. You just said that you lay down some sort of drum track before you send it to him.
yeah. All the
So,
songs had a drum track, but there's some conversations in between. And then some parts like, hey, Bruno, I'm thinking about this, but bring whatever you feel like, because I know him. It's more like we can have a deeper conversation because I know what he does. So I can create thinking like, oh, he's able to do that. So it's not that I'm creating just like a basic drum tracks that then I will find who's going to play that drums. I'm already creating, thinking, oh, this is going to be perfect for Bruno.
out of nothing, there's so many builds and climaxes, and I swear if that song was a person, it would be bipolar. That was what was on when I was painting that picture back there.
Yeah,
And it
yeah.
just, it was psychotic.
So that's what I'm talking about. Then you create a song, is how we feel. Out of nothing has this interval, like dissonant interval, right? Tritone, Diabolos in Musica. So I want to do something like this, Black Sabbath, right? I want to do something like that, so like evil. It starts there. It's a very simple thing. It's like I'm gonna paint using black because I want something dark. Black and red. Okay, So it's like that. Those two notes that kind of together, they give you already a direction. Then you add some pink, some others, then you start adding stuff, other colors, elements. I feel like some Brazilian groove behind. So that's talking about Bruno again. I remember in this specific song, I said, Bruno, think Brazilian when you play. I know it's metal, I know it's straight beat, but think Brazilian for the accents, how you play, or the feels. And then it's like, oh, and then he understood. So then when you have the song full of parts, like, why I decided to do like this, and then you start reflecting about yourself. Am I like this? And then I look, my room is like, there's a lot of guitars, like, what a mess. But those guitars are here because I just did a video showing the guitars of the album, actually. So that's why normally it's not like that.
Well, you know, Raveled has some pretty Brazilian moments in it too.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. The classical guitar.
the melodies have a certain rhythm to them, and I think that that's what makes that sound that way. The
This song I was playing acoustic guitar and I kind of like to do that. It's kind of a rolling thing with the right hand,
I
kind of
like that.
fast. And then it gave me that weird feeling. It's like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then the whole song is based on that thing.
Yeah, I
Don't
like
think.
the way that you mix different musical styles, and I think that's what sets you apart
And
from
there's a
other
thing that
metal.
was when I was thinking about this song and being like listening to modern players, right, or modern productions. When you think about when I started, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, and moments that you used to do less things on the computer. Of course, people that plays electronic music have been doing music in the computer for a long time.
Yeah.
But like rock bands, metal bands, it was all about getting together in a rehearsal room and playing together. The real drums, loud, big Marshall cabinet and playing loud bass, and then you get together for a rehearsal and you play for several hours, and then you stop for a coffee and go back. But the jazz musician is the same. It's about connecting with other people, and then like it's like everybody's very individual now with the Instagram and TikTok, and then the computers composing, and that which is bad. It's bad, but it's good too because then it's only you, and then there's a good side that you can do the way you want. But there's one thing which is like you can mix instrument that would be impossible to mix in a rehearsal room.
True.
So, and with Angra, even Megadeth with the song Conquer or Die is like a classical guitar as an intro. But when the band comes in, the classical guitar is out because the classical guitar cannot compete with a metal drummer, right? In the same moment of the song or like a heavy guitar. But this is like a kind of a preset that we have in our mind that's like a classical guitar cannot be with a guitar because physically this would be impossible in an actual environment with the technology of the past. That's why you see clean guitar tones also used as lower dynamics moments. And then when you have like higher dynamic moments or bands like Guns N' Roses would be kind of a crunchy clean because the amp is already kind of distorting because you need to have that clean kind of loud. So it's not super clean. But the modern bands, they mix like the super crystal clear clean because the guitar is like direct to the computer and that doesn't matter. And the drums, you can control the volume. Actually, the clean guitar can be louder than a metal drummer. So then thinking about this, it's like, well, so then the classical guitar can be louder than the metal drummer because I have this control. What if the whole concept of the song is a classical guitar playing with the 8 strings guitar and metal drummer full on? That combination of texture. So that's the term in classical music, right? When you
Yeah.
the texture, or you're deciding the instrumentation of the part, right? So normally, if you see any song with a classical guitar, would be intros or dynamic moments. So the classical guitar comes in, but never with the full dynamic metal part with the classical guitar guy playing, because in real life this would be impossible.
That what you just said just made that song way better for me, Raveled.
Yeah, and it's not. It might be like a Brazilian thing because it's a classical guitar, like has this, the nylon strings has this connection with the Iberian,
Yeah.
Portugal, Spain, and then South America, this tradition. But it's an instrument that I love to play. But the concept came more like about the mixing, the texture of mixing like 8 strings guitar, like a pure metal, pure metal guitar with a classical guitar, you know. So, yeah. Because the rhythm is not really Brazilian. It's like kind of straightforward, kind of, yeah.
How did you
Yeah.
come up with a theory of mind, the name for the album?
So the open source album was kind of connected with this technology, right? Open source
Hmm.
software, thinking about the collaboration of people. The good thing about internet and the whole uh, technology that we are in, you can connect people easily, right?
Yeah.
Or you have a Wikipedia, and then suddenly like everybody puts a little bit, and you create Wikipedia, right?
Hmm.
Then so open source like this idea of that. That's why I gave the tracks so people could create whatever they want. So it came from that place, right? And I kind of like this, and people like that had this theme around the album. So then I was thinking like, oh, something about technology. What's the technology of the moment that everybody's talking about? AI. But then it's like, I'm not gonna put the name of the album like AI something, you know. So I was like reading about AI, checking other stuff. I was watching some lectures and podcasts and interviews from a specific scientist, Nico Delis, that he was talking about this like a neural net. Was one of the first guys in the US. He's a Brazilian guy, but he was in the US developing. It's not the neural link. The neural link came way after, but it's kind of the same. You know. So he created like an exoskeleton. So can
Uh-huh.
like so created that in the I don't know like maybe 10 years ago. So you think and you move, right?
Oh, is that the thing that
For disabled people, you
yes,
know. So
yes,
the guy
yes.
that he's like the guy is like he's super like the super scientist. And
Hmm.
then I was like, and it turns to be Brazilian, so I discovered this guy, through a podcast, whatever. And then MIT, I don't know, Harvard, whatever, I don't know, somewhere in the US. The guy was developing his group, this. So I was like very interested on this thing, you know. Like, oh, maybe there's something about this connection because we all somehow are connected by this. I was trying to figure out something because this guy he thinks that whatever artificial intelligence is not artificial, is not intelligent. So he's like very controversial talking about AI. So I was interested because I thought, well, maybe it's cool if I find something and the reason that human beings are way more, because he believed that the brain of human beings is way more capable than any AI will be, right? Well, the guy has been dedicating his life to study the brains. And then because our brains are such a, I'm sorry, I just like, it's like my songs, I'm just not answering their question. I'm trying to like summarize this. The brain is way more powerful than any AI because it's organic. Every time you think about something, you have new things coming, and then your brain adapt to that
Hmm.
new thing. And then talking about divergency people, and the whole Megadeth situation that I wanted
Hmm.
to be more at home with my family, that, and I got into this too. And one day, as a doctor, I hear this term, fear of mind. Fear of mind. It's like, oh, interesting. What is that? But I was not thinking about the album. I was like, let me read because this is, I want to know more about this. And then one day, reading about I see the term fear of mind. The fourth generation of AI will be when the AI understands and can be capable to have the theory of mind, which is the human capability of understand other feelings. And when you're talking about music, which is basically the feeling, so I understand how you feel when you listen to my music because I listen to other songs and I feel like falling, right? So I understand that. That's the theory of mind because I can understand how you feel. Some people they might have difficulties, or some children might have this later, which cause some difficulties in the first years at school, right? Um, some people don't have that, you know, at all. The empathy And then it can be like a sociopath because they don't understand, if they don't understand, if I hit you, you're gonna cry. And then if I don't understand that you're crying is just the same way that I cry. When I cry, I know how I feel. But if you cry, I don't know if that's the same thing, which is weird to think. So how we human beings connect with the theory of mind. So it's different. It's like, it's not a side project anymore. Open source, I was playing Megadeth, it was a side project. So now it's the main project. It gives like this different weight. Kind of what I always wanted to do, and I didn't have the courage, I guess.
Really?
That's where I reflect. How do you guys in the US say the green is the grass is always greener?
The grass is always greener on the other side.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And
So
then we
yeah,
drink our drinks from a mason jar.
I know this is in Nashville. Everybody does that. I thought it was like, oh, that's
So
in the
that's
Nordic country. Everybody uses IKEA stuff.
oh,
I mean, I think now it makes sense, I was like, I want to do the music that I want. When you're in a band, not because of labels or anything, a record company, a band, how do you say, like a framework? There's a framework, right? That's why it's like, oh, the grass is always greener because, like, oh, imagine if it would be only Kiko, then I can be anything. I can do an album of classical guitar, metal. I don't know if it's good for my career, but I can. Megadeth cannot do like a classical guitar album because it's Megadeth. You have to put some skulls and metal riffs. Some AC/DC doesn't have a love song, so people have some expectations from artists and bands.
before when we were just talking about doing this interview, you said something that really stuck in my head. You said music is hard to put into words. It's deeper than a lot of people think. And
Isn't
that's
it?
pretty profound to me because, some artists can do that quite easily. They can do what comes from the heart, and then there's others that try really hard to stick to what's commercially viable. I was always wondering how you stay focused and in your right mindset and don't lose yourself and write what you want to write without worrying about what's going to commercially work later.
No, yeah, I don't think about if the song is gonna work commercially, but composers that think commercially, I believe that it's natural as well. I believe that like Bruno Mars, great composer, and it's like super commercial, right? Few things that I remember watching an interview or something that he grew up seeing Michael Jackson as his reference. If you grew up like seeing Paul McCartney or Michael Jackson, or Stevie Wonder, and then you're already kind of shaping your taste, what you think is beautiful. Being direct and simple is not a sign of being bad. Actually, it's a sign of being great. It's much easier to create a 10-minute song with 20 parts than to create a great pop song. It's much easier. You just add stuff, just like whatever, like pasta with a lot of veggies. Just put whatever, put stuff. So like pasta was something, right? So what I do is not, I do what I feel like at the moment, and then I try to make it nice inside the style that I like. But I think that the people that are into this, they're not obeying like rules of I don't believe. Some people might be, but like the big artists that they stays forever, that's who they are. They just have this huge talent to say something that connects to a lot of people. It's like, how can you put some musically complex things, but the people just listen and it flows naturally. It's not simple, it's complex, but it touches people. That's the most difficult thing in music, in art, to do something really deep with a lot of elements that a musician can go and dig and find, more different chords, more different melodies. Oh, he thought about this. Beatles has that. Stevie Wonder has that.
Yeah.
Elton John has that. The same goes for the classical composers. So that's what I try to think when I play. But then in the end, it's a bunch of notes in the guitar. But then that's the thought behind, the process behind
Yeah.
the references. Nothing to do with the capitalism or record labels. Somehow we have to go along with those things because you have to upload to Spotify because we need to make the Spotify owners and shareholders, they can have, their new yacht, we have to help them. So I'm
So,
very happy. I don't need a yacht I think it's too much. I live in Finland, so the sea is frozen for half of the year. So like what, you know? So just give me more guitars, and I'm happy.
On
All
that
right.
note,
Mm.
thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
so
doing
much.
this.
All right, Christine. Bye
All
bye. Thank
right.
you.
Bye bye.
Cheers.